advance of my travel here, but it caused me to think back to a couple of things. First of all, I was privileged to be a part of our conference office delegation in November 2011 when we traveled to Columbia to celebrate the addition of Missouri as our 14th member. Exited a plane, I think we were in the student union. I don't know if I've used the proper term. I rounded a corner, and one of the members of the drum line at the university was a young man who was part of our church, our family's small group in Plano, Texas. And that's the familiarity that you don't know you have sometimes that you actually have. Fast forward, the end of the football season, 2013, Mizzou played Texas A&M at home and captured the East Division Championship. And I was here for that experience. I became commissioner in 2015. I was here to experience a new softball stadium when our conference tournament played in that beautiful facility. I was sharing earlier with the board, I was here on a cold and somewhat rainy day to watch a cross-country championship hosted here. And it's been a privilege for me personally to experience some of these moments at the University of Missouri, and then to be here today for this announcement and to see what the future holds. I'm not an architect. My name's not Art Vandelay, if you are a Seinfeld fan. But we traveled to Wrigley Field last year. Laird was not a part of that. We brought athletics directors and other staff intentionally to see, knowing the rivalries in the National League, I want to be careful, but the honoring of tradition and the activation of opportunities to bring people in a new way. And I actually think you see that here with the campus-facing front of this project, the 6 columns. The Rock M, and the honoring of that tradition while still modernizing and providing opportunities that people want to be a part of in a special way. So it's great to be here. A couple opening comments. We're trying to figure out how to have 7 of the top 7 football teams in the poll. We want to be excellent at what we do. Knowing that here at Mizzou there's a rebuilding in volleyball. We have remarkable competition in volleyball and women's soccer. I remark one of my favorite experiences, one of those memorable experiences from a competitor standpoint, is Carissa Schweitzer when she was competing at Mizzou. And to see her as an Olympian is a reward, not simply for you and knowing what you've built into her life, but for me as the commissioner of the conference, knowing what she achieved in a great way. We're at an interesting time in college sports. Plenty of questions, plenty of opportunity. You think about it from a different perspective, and during these times of change, there's no place I'd rather be personally, and I think the same for our 16 universities than in the Southeastern Conference. So with that, I'll see what you ask and figure out what I answer in response.
We can do this the same way. Folks will raise their hand. Eli.
Eli Hoff, St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Commissioner Sankey, a bit off topic from this evening today, but the Disney DirecTV dispute, is that something that reaches a level of concern for you or the SEC?
Each time there's a carriage negotiation, sure, it's a level of attention, and in fact, I had not even opened the email from my friends at DirecTV, and it was on social media that they had written me a letter. We've stayed in constant communication with our colleagues at ESPN and Disney. I know they're working diligently to provide the opportunity to restore the service. We'll see what happens. It's a changing time in the business. I actually am a person who went to Best Buy in the 90s, bought a box, and installed my own DirecTV satellite dish, and I've pivoted, and I use YouTube TV. But these things happen. We've avoided significant disruption. We did have one last year for about a week, and hopefully they can find their way to a conclusion.
Hi there, Cal McKendrick, Columbia Daily Tribune. With the House NCAA settlement currently stalled in the courts, what are you telling administrators currently about how to proceed?
I don't know that I'd use the word stalled. There are questions that have to be answered. In May, there was an announcement about agreement to terms, then there's a long form, then there's hearings, and I was open back to our football media days in mid-July that this is a process. We're not at an end just because the press release was issued. You saw questions raised, questions maybe not answered as clearly as they needed to be, and so we'll keep working. This was a hard work project for months to arrive at even the opportunity for settlement conversations to take place. in the spring. It was a hard work project to come to an agreement on a long form, and we'll see if it is able to proceed. Those questions will need to be answered in the next few weeks, and this is subject to a court and legal process, not to my decision making. But we've done the hard work. We'll continue to work to see if it can be clarified and see what decisions might be made at the court level.
Commissioner Gabe DeArmond with Power Mizzou. We're, 2-3 years into NIL, and there seems to be talk around the country of the way Missouri has done this since it was, initiated. I'm curious your view of how Mizzou has maybe been ahead in that space, or how they've operated and the impact it's had on this football program.
Gabe, you can imagine there's a lot of commentary that I receive about name, image, and likeness activities are now 3+ years into its onset, starting in 2021, so people have perspectives and opinions. I'll go back to some of the fundamentals. I have never thought, and I think we as a conference have never thought, that the right way to do this is on a state-by-state basis. And I think we've seen why. A young person being recruited by 10 different universities has to figure out 10 different state laws and what they're told and what people tell them. We've put some level of authority, if you will, outside of our university leadership framework, collectives, others on the outside. There's no consumer protection, meaning the young person who is the consumer of this activity. There's no transparency. I think those are concerns in all 50 states and in every athletic program in our conference and need to be addressed. I know there are ongoing conversations in Congress. I know it is a difficult political time in our country, though, to accomplish an objective, and so I don't simply rely on that expectation, but we do need national standards. Our student athletes deserve to know when they line up across the line of scrimmage that the people on the other side in the other uniforms are held to the same set of standards. Our young people deserve better than this patchwork. Our young people deserve better than whispers and promises from people that they don't know. Our young people deserve better than agents who can print out on a printer a business card or a contract with no oversight. They deserve better than that. That's not subject to a conference's control, but we have a responsibility to lead in changing the current environment and making it healthier for the young person. Name, image, likeness is not going away. This is not about taking that opportunity away, it's making sure that it's healthy. And it sets young people up for success in life. It doesn't create circumstances where they're controlled beyond their college experience.
Commissioner Sankey, Henry Boyer, Kansas City Star. I wonder if you might just reflect on Missouri's evolution into the fit that it is now in the conference from those early days. If you could just elaborate on that a little bit, about where it started and where it seems to be now.
Keeping in mind that moment I was down on the field and we had field storming penalties in 2013. It did happen in an orderly fashion, so I give Mike Allman and his team back then credit for helping that happen in an orderly fashion. When we were here in St. Louis in 2018 for a basketball tournament, it was a sign that this is a different footprint. And I said at that time, people never imagined that we'd be playing an SEC basketball tournament in St. Louis, Missouri. I said at media days, and I'll repeat, we're 16 universities. We're not universities that started, universities that moved in the 90s or the 2010s or the 2020s. We're 16 strong universities in the strongest athletic conference in the nation. And I think Missouri fits perfectly in that. And from my perspective, the continuing growth of the program, and if you go through the investment in facilities, the south end zone, now the north end zone vision, but the way they support the student athletes, the way they've been intentional about personal growth over the last decade plus, I think it's a tribute to the university. I think one of the experiences I had yesterday as we were talking about the SEC network at what we call a content board meeting, is the intentional way that the athletic department has integrated learning experience into production facilities around SEC network and ESPN programming. All of that's a seamless representation of Missouri in the Southeastern Conference.
A question back here.
Kyle Helms, ABC 17 News in Columbia. You touched on it a little bit, Commissioner Sankey, but you know, seeing the momentum around Mizzou athletics right now and projects like this, you know, just how important is it not just for Mizzou, but also the SEC as a whole?
Well, we'll start with campus. And I think big picture from our university is the time of changing student demographics, growth and change and cranes on campus is a sign of life when you look at universities. There are enrollment pieces, there are faculty pieces, there are status pieces, there are programmatic pieces, and some of that growth is seen externally, and this is about part of that growth. And I've never been one who says that the athletics department is the front porch to a university, because that simply isolates something. An athletics program is part of a university. It's very visible. It draws people in. It draws people in who may not have a natural affiliation, but who want to be part of something bigger than themselves. It draws people from different regions who explore a university because perhaps they saw it represented on a television set during an athletic contest. I think those are incredibly healthy opportunities, and the continued growth is a part of what happens on campuses. That's, again, a sign of life.
Time for one more question.
It's just getting warmed up.
Keep going.
Joey Van Zummer with Missouri RNSI. Commissioner Sankey, I'm just wondering if you could kind of add your thoughts to what Creator Blitz had talked about of programs that had seen success in football but were a little bit neglectful to invest and continue to build up those programs, and why you think it's important that Missouri invest on this in this moment now.
So one of the realities of this role is I can say things and then go back to my room later that day and look at the scroll on ESPN and they're quoting what I said. So I prefer to speak to the strength of commitment present here today, the representation of the structure that opens to campus and invites people in, and the reference to using it beyond 7 or 8 football games a year, but integrating the facility into the community, and the community into the facility, both at the university level, at a city level, and I would argue at a state level, as you've heard of vision. There are going to be ebbs and flows competitively. What you want to do, in my view, is lay a foundation upon which you continually build to achieve success. And I would evaluate, without commenting on any other program, that's exactly what needs to be done and exactly what you're seeing here today. And it's not a moment, it's a continuing point of progress, and that's to be commended.